Okay, so hello and welcome back to another Unity tutorial. In this one we'll be finishing the vendor system in my RPG systems tutorial series. We'll be coming back to this in the future probably to do some refactoring because there's some naming I could redo and probably cutting down the necessary functions and just improving the logic to be smarter and require less code. But obviously it all works right now, and generally you want to get a prototype working and test it all works before you actually, get it into its final form. So in this video we want to hook up the slider so that we can, when we change the displayed item, it changes the max stack of that item to say, how many you've got in the inventory, and then you can slide up and down, but we're probably only going to let the player slide up to the amount they can afford. I think that makes sense. And then it'll probably tell you as well, like the total cost. So if an item costs 10 gold and you select 10, it'll just say that's going to cost you 100. We might also want to display how much money you have in total, and then eventually want to get it so that when we press the confirm button on buy, it'll then say, all right, do you have enough money? Yep. Okay, add those items all to your inventory. Then when you added them all, we want to update the UI accordingly, so it updates how much gold you've got, it updates what items are left and how many of them. So that's what this video is about. So I hope you enjoy this video, and let's get to it. But of course, first I've got to thank my patrons, with special thanks to Flow State Games, Average Morning, Art Farrell, Buddha Ray, Remy Baldwin, and Phil Baum. If anyone else is able to help support the channel monetarily, the link will be down below. There's also links down below to my social media, such as Twitch, Twitter, and Discord. So if you can help me out on any of those, then that would be greatly appreciated. But now let's get to the video. So we left off last video being able to pick up some items of our own, go to the NPC, start trading, and then we see, they've got 2 speed potions, 6 health potions. We can click between them. Then when we go into sell, we can see our items, so we've got 3 of them. But currently this 10 out of 50 is just static, and this slider just doesn't do anything. So we want to reset the slider down to 0 every time that we switch items, essentially. And then we want to be able to drag this to tweak this number, and then perhaps have beside it the actual total quantity, or total price, sorry. And then we want to display how much money we've got, and then when we press confirm, it'll do the transaction, basically. Now, the way I've designed it, I think when we sell items, it should add it to this vendor's inventory. I thought that'd be a pretty cool idea. And then when we buy items, obviously it removes it from their inventory, because that's the whole point of having the quantity thing in their item containers we take and put into theirs. And I also think a pretty cool thing that some games have done in the past is for like vendors, for example. When you sell items to them, you can only do it if they have enough money to buy from you. Like sometimes you need... Well, we'll give the NPCs money themselves. So if you go to a poor NPC, they can't actually afford to buy your items off you. Now, some games even have it so that you can choose the price of your items. And if you choose it to be higher than what they think it's worth, they won't accept it. Whereas if you choose it to be lower, they'll be like grateful, you're giving them stuff really cheap. So that's something really complicated that we could do further down the line. For now, we just want it to be quite simple. So we're just going to say item containers have to have gold, right? If you're an item container, you have to have money. And then from there, we can obviously start implementing the logic. Okay, eventually we'll probably put the actual money logic elsewhere in case we have like other currencies or anything to do with that. But for now, I think it makes perfect sense just to put it in the item container. So we want a int for the money. So we're just going to call it, money. And then we're going to say get set, because if we have an item container with money, we're going to want to be able to get how much money it has and set how much money it has. Now set means like adding and subtracting as well. It doesn't just mean, overriding it. So the inventory isn't going to be happy anymore. Oh well, the interface isn't going to be happy with the inventory. So we need to add at the top a serialized field, private int, and we'll just call it money. And we're going to give everyone a default value of 100 money, right? Now, that could be gold or silver or bronze or copper or whatever currency you have in your game, doubloons. But for now, I'm just going to keep it as money. That's just the price, isn't it, a number. And then we're going to say public int money get return money set. Let's put a semicolon there. Set money is equal to value. So that's how you write a getter and a setter if you want to change a serialized field property. You could equally just make this public, but a lot of people don't like making stuff public because eventually you might want to do other stuff when you set and get money, so you could add that logic in here. For now, we can just have a simple one-liner like that. the vendor system is now aware of how much money we have, so we can access that from each item container separately. Okay, when you've got a system you're designing with lots of different little things to do, it's best to split it into those different little things and do one of them at a time. So for example, at first we did the populating of this, next we've done the updating of the text, and then and the buttons as well. And now we want to sort out the rest of it, which is literally just this bit down here. We want to have this quantity update, the slider to update some text and price and so on, and confirm button to do the final process. The confirm button bit's going to be the hardest by far because there's more logic to take into consideration, but it shouldn't be very difficult at all because we're essentially doing the same thing for either me or the other vendor. So it shouldn't be too difficult. But what I want to do now is get the text here to update. Every time we change item, we want to set it to be 0 out of, and then a number that we're going to get from the item container, which is going to be the total they have of that item, which actually we currently display on the UI anyway for a button, so it shouldn't be very hard to get that. So let's go do that now. Okay, so let's get access to the text for the quantity and the slider for the quantity, because currently the slider quantity is in float between 0 and 1. And we could probably work with that, but it'd be very difficult. It makes much more sense to use whole numbers and go between 0 and the max quantity. So if the max was, 50, for example, then it makes sense easily to go up to 50, down to 0. That's what we want to do. So let's get access in here to this. We'll make a new header for it. We're going to say the quantity display. We want reference to some more text, like so. We're going to call it quantity text. And we want reference to a slider, so slider, and we'll call it quantity slider. Maybe we want to tell this to use the UI namespace, and we've got to think, well, when do we update this, right? We update it whenever we set the item. Whenever we set a new item is when we need to then take that item and ask, how much does that person have of it? So we're going to need to know, who it belongs to, because we could easily ask either item container who it belongs to. And we don't want to have loads of ifs saying, if this person, ask this one, if this person, ask this one. So I feel like one little refactor we could do now is get rid of this selling and buying item container and just have the vendor data for the scenario store essentially, well, obviously we need to store both of them, but we need to then store who's buying and who's selling at a particular time. So we're going to refactor this now and have a lot of renaming, but it's definitely going to make it much easier for us to continue. Okay, I think what makes sense is not to tweak anything that is below this in terms of abstraction, like anything that is below this class we shouldn't really do anything with, but currently we interact with it publicly from a buying and a selling, which would be okay, I guess, but that's going to need to change. Currently we just set those values and get them. Ideally, we want to store an array of size 2, just a private array, size 2, to store the item containers. And by default, the buying one is the first one and selling is the second one. But as soon as we press a button, depending on which button we've pressed, we want to swap those around. Now, rather than actually reorganizing the array, it makes sense to just store maybe an integer or something like that, or a boolean or whatever, right? And then with that, we can then tell, oh yeah, this is the current buying one, this is the current selling one. There's so many different ways you could do this. Some bits will be more concise than others, and depending on how I do it, it might not be the smartest way to do it, but it's definitely going to help us a lot, and we're going to have to change this code to have less repeated bits, which is obviously a good thing, because currently we have a buy and a sell tab button that do essentially the same thing, just here they say a different item container to represent, and that's literally it. That's the only difference. So I don't really see why we need 2 buttons for it. We just want 2 functions for it. We definitely need 2 functions of the buy and the sell tab, because obviously the 2 buttons do different things, but in terms of the logic inside the function, that should all be hidden away inside a single function rather than having that copied and pasted twice. So to do that, we're going to go back to the scenario data, and we're going to store a private item container array called just item containers, as you do. These are new item container array of size 2. Then when we pass in these things, instead of saying what we've said here, we want to say item containers 0 is equal to, or we could even just say is equal to a new item container. I mean, then again, no, but it's initialized with size 2, so it doesn't matter. We can just say index 0 is equal to this, and item containers 1 is equal to this, and then we're just going to say the buying and the selling, right? Now that's just the constructor, meaning that just because we've set those values like that doesn't mean we are fixated to them. We can easily do stuff with them after. But now we've got an array here where the first thing, index 0, is the initial buying, and index 2 is the initial selling. Now all the external class, all the vendor system wants to know is when we ask this scenario data, it's going to say who is buying and who is selling. So rather than hard coding it like this, the buying item container by default is going to be index 0, but when we've changed will be index 1, right? So I'd say we just have a simple boolean and then do logic based on that boolean. Would make life a lot easier. So let's have a private, I'll just put it on the line below it. Private, come on. Private bool, and we'll just call it, what should we call it? Is first container buying equals true. I mean, we could think of a better way to this, but we're the first item container, like we're the first one in the array. So are we buying? By default, we are buying. So, that's just the start. So when we're asking what the buying item container is, right? So we want to return the buying item container is item containers. No, we need to do the if first. The if is basically, is first container buying, ? So if the first container is buying, then the buying item container is item containers 0. Otherwise, it's item containers 1, right? And if I just copy and paste this and then say selling 1 0, okay. Now that might seem a little bit pointless, and there's probably, a better way to do it maybe. We need to set this when we press the buttons, and that's all we really need to do. So to set this, we could just make this a public. Is first container buying get set equals true, and we make these capital, so is and is. I'm sure one of you guys might think of a better way to do this, but what we can do now, which is quite nice, obviously we're going to get some errors in here probably, maybe not actually, no we don't, because we don't access that currently. Let's just look through here. So when we start, we say select the buy tab button, makes sense. The buy tab button says clear all the buttons, fair enough, and then it says do all this. So this here is the logic that doesn't really make much sense. This should be its own function, right? So let's put it in its own function, and we'll just call it set buyer seller, I don't know, set current container or something along those lines. And all we want to take in really is, actually no, we don't want to take anything in. We can just say the scenario data dot is first container buying. Well, when we're buying, yes, so true. And then if we copy and paste this buy into the cell, like so, and then just say equals false. Yeah, again, every time I say this, there's probably still better ways to do it than what I'm doing it, but this is just the way I came up with. That seems to work fine when I tried it earlier. So now when we set, we're saying, well, don't get the selling item container, right? We just want to say get the actually no, sorry, we do, because the selling item container we've now changed to be whoever's selling, and then that's fine. So actually, yeah, all the time the selling one is what we want to see. That's nice. Okay, so let's just go test that little bit of logic. We can also go to the vendor UI and drag in the quantity slider and the quantity text, but we currently don't update it, so don't expect that to be changing automatically just yet. But when we press play, we should have the same logic. It should work the same way as it did earlier, really. Buy and sell, we get the items, and so on. And if I do test this with my own inventory, it works, right? It displays the stuff. When we change the tabs, we change whose thing we're displaying. That's really good. That makes our life a lot easier now. We've cut this down to have all that logic in one function, and the tabs just do all this. I mean, to be honest, right? I could just cut the clear to the start of here, and then the set current. Well, no, that's all we do, right? We just say that. So then, even then, right? That's another thing. We can just say bool is first or something, right? We can pass false in here and reduce that line, and then we can say true to that line. And one other thing you guys actually might not know that you can do is we could pass bool. If we make this function public, we can even just do it completely in inspector. So we can just get rid of these functions entirely. I mean, well, yeah, we can. And then we can say on here, set it to have the first, which is true. And now in the inspector, we just have to pass in true and false, but we can do that, which is pretty easy. The buy button tells the vendor system, look for the bool, there it is, set it. So if it's the buy button, it's true because the buy button is setting the first. And then for the sell button, bool, I'm a bit blind. Oh, because I'm looking at the wrong class. I'm not blind, never mind. That's false, right? So now we've even reduced it like further than that. It should work the exact same way, and we've just took out tons of code. Well, not tons, but we've took out a bit. And that's the essence of refactoring. We can go between... except I've obviously messed something up here, apparently. The item pickup... Wait, what? I didn't interact with the item pickup, did I? Let me just try that again. So if I go over here and interact with the item pickup, interact with the NPC, let me just check this. Oh, no. So sorry, the last thing we need to do is in the vendor system, when we take in that boolean, we don't actually use it currently, so we want to just say in here, maybe clear the buttons, and then say scenario data dot is thingy equals is first. So we can set it through the parameter. Then it'll work. My bad. Go get this. Go get this. Hello. Buy and sell. Nice. That works. Now when we go to the vendor system and set all this stuff here, now we can set the slider. Okay, the quantity slider dot min value is equal to 0. We always want to set, well, actually that's always going to be 0. We don't want to set that. We want to set the value to 0, right? But I'll say we set the value to 0 after we've set the sliders max equal to the current selling, so the scenario data dot selling item container. So whoever's selling dot total quantity, right, of the item. So now if we press play and go over to them, 0. All right. We don't update the text actually, but the slider's fine. So 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 2, 1, 2. So the slider works. We just need to update the text, right? So let's say the quantity text.text is equal to, well, it's going to equal 0. Well, we'll say here 0 out of, and then the total. So let's store this as an integer, right? Int total quantity is equal to that total quantity. Now we don't currently have a thing for updating it. We just set it at the start. We need to obviously update it whenever we drag the slider. That's easy enough to do. So you see here, 0 out of 2, here, 0 out of 6. Okay, yeah, so to update the slider text itself, we're going to want to make a function for it. So public void update slider text takes in a float quantity, right? And all we're going to do is we're going to say the quantity text dot text is equal to quantity over the total quantity. I'm just going to put this total quantity thing down here again. Obviously, I could make a getter for that or something, but we're just going to put it there. And that should be it, really. We just set the text to be the quantity out of the total quantity. Fix all compile errors. Someone's not happy. Because there's no item. So do we not store the current item? Probably should. So private inventory item, current item. So when we set item, we'll just say this. No, wait, we can say current item is item. Because when we buy, we're also going to want to know what the current item is, so it's definitely something we should cache there. We go and speak to him, let's trade. So final thing, we need to actually hook it up in the UI. So the slider, on value change, vendor UI, vendor system, update slider text, and we can apply it all. So hopefully, let's trade. 1 2 1 2 0 2 1 0 1 2 3 4 5 6. There you go. So now we can actually preview. All right, I want to buy 5 of these or 4 of these. Then confirm should do the buying, right? And then obviously on selling, we want to hopefully reset that because it just shows it out of the current item. Now, if we try and access, it'll just return 0 if that item doesn't exist. So we do want to probably hide all that stuff. We could easily, rather than just clearing all this text, we could just say like make a hide function or something, but you know that's just a niceness feature that we can add on top. So finally, what we want to do for this video is just do the buy button really, and the sell button, and then we're happy, right? Okay, for simplicity, I'm just going to store a private bool. Actually, not private bool is selling. We can just access the boolean from the scenario data, so that's good. What we're going to want to do, just keep in mind, in this video, I'm not going to cover every single edge case. Like, let's say you try and buy an item, but you don't have room in your inventory. It's not going to work right now. I mean, what it'll do is it'll just, it's basically going to charge you for the item, but not give you it. Obviously, that's the kind of thing you want to avoid. So you guys, it's up to you guys to do that after this video. But as I said, I will be doing a refactor video in the future where we'll cover edge cases. We've obviously covered quite a few, but we need to cover them all, hopefully. That's kind of the plan. I just don't want this video to run on too long. So let's make a function. So like... public void confirm button. So what do we want to do when we press confirm, right? Well, we just want to say take off the money from one person and give it to the other, and then take off the items from one person and give it to the other. That's really all we want to do, right? And by items, I mean the item and the quantity of it. So depending on if we're buying or if we're selling, we want to do it differently, right? We don't always want to just take it off the buying and give it to the sellings. It depends if we're selling or not. So we want to say, if there might be a better way to do this with less lines, but we're going to say if the scenario data dot is first person buying, do this, else do this. I feel like that's the logic we're going to have to go for now. I mean, we don't have to, but it's just the easiest way I thought of doing it. So if the first person's buying, that just means we're on the buy tab, right? That's all it means, we're on the buy tab. So if we're on the buy tab and we press confirm, we expect to subtract the cost of the item from the first person and add it to the second, because we're buying, right? So we want to say scenario data dot if the first person's buying, take the person that's buying dot money minus equals, and then we'll just say 0, right? Because we want to calculate that value, and then we want to say whoever's selling, we want to add that value. So scenario data dot selling item container dot money plus equals that value. So we're just going to say int price equals that, and then we're going to work out what that price is, and we're going to add and subtract them accordingly. So now they both have the right money, but we want to obviously make sure they have their items. So that we say scenario data dot buying item container dot add item takes in a new item slot. Let's just type item slot and then get it to import. It'd be nicer if it lets me. So an item slot can take in an item and a quantity, which is what we're going to want to do. So we want to add a particular item. The item we're going to add is the current item, and the quantity is the slider dot value. Now, as far as it's aware, the slider value is a float, so we need to tell it it's an int, because it is. Okay. Now I could put that on a new line just to make it easier to read. Someone's not happy because we have not got enough. Okay, I get it. Because that's meant to be there, but that can go there. All right, so we're adding a new item slot, basically just adding new stuff to the buying one, and then we say scenario data dot selling item container dot remove item, and then it takes in an item slot. So actually, this item slot stuff, we can just pass it into both. Because it's a struct, not a class, it doesn't matter. We're not going to actually be changing anything with it. So we can just say item slot, or we can say like var item swap, item slot swap or something is equal to a new, I mean, we can just say it's equal to that, is the point. We've already worked out what we're adding and removing. So here we are adding that. So we can actually just put it on one line because it's concise enough now to do so. Dot remove that. Okay, and then everyone's happy, except those random bits over there. And then down here, if it's the first one selling, then, I mean, yeah, there'll be definitely a better way to do this, but we calculate the price, and then we'll say buying one plus equals, the other one minus equals, and then the, well, actually, we got to be careful here, because, so if the first one isn't buying, then, so if the first one is selling, then the buying one yeah, okay, no, that's fine. That makes sense. It is, right? And now here we just want to say buying, remove, other one, add item. Okay, so that's the way I'm going to do it now. I understand like that int price could be taken out, for example, right? So we can cut that out and then go put it here and calculate it here. So what is the price, right? Well, the price is price is equal to 0. Then we'll just say for I is less than the slider dot value I plus plus, right? So while it's less than the value of the slider, price plus equals the item, the current item dot price. There's obviously a better way to do it than that. We can just do a multiplication. We could say price is equal to the current item multiplied by the quantity slider dot value. Obviously, we'll have to make it an int. I don't know why I decided to do a loop there, but yeah, my bad. Okay, wait, it's not the current item. It's the current item dot price times by that. Cool. Now let's go hook that up and see if it works. So the button for confirming, we're just going to say vendor UI dot confirm button. Let's go test it, and that might be the end of this video. It should be. So let's. I've said both people start off with 100 money. So if we actually go look at the player, we'll see the player has 100 money. So if we say let's trade, and we go to speed potions, and we set it to 1. I mean, we don't update the UI currently as well. That's another niceness thing we're going to have to do is update the UI. It would update if you close out and come back in, but we want to do it automatically. But this video's gone on long enough, so actually I'll do that all in the refactor video. You guys can clean it up a little bit if you want. But for the speed potion, let's say we buy 1, buy. Our money's gone down by 5, and we now have, hopefully, a speed potion along with our health potion. If we go back in, obviously it's gone down on here, and we can only buy 1 now. We buy it. My money's gone down again. If we open the trade, then it's gone. Let's say we want to buy 4 of these. Our money's gone down a bit more, and we've got like quite a few more health potions now. If we go sell, here's all our stuff. We want to sell our 2 health potions and sell all those things. We're back up. Wait. Our money's going down while we're selling. So obviously something's going on there, yeah. And that was the thing I was worried about, actually. So yeah, when I was writing this logic a minute ago, we actually just want to always, yeah, I mean, why did I do that? We always want to say, no matter what, right, that the person who's buying currently loses money because whoever's buying is the one spending money and whoever's selling is the one gaining money. And then whoever's buying an item adds item, whoever's selling an item removes it. I don't know why I put that inside the if statement, because that would have been the way we had to do it if I didn't refactor earlier on in the video, but because I did, obviously, that's fine. So now, actually, yeah, if I trade and I say buy 6 health potions, my money's gone down by 6, but if I go and sell 9 health potions, I'm now on 103 money. I've sold all my stuff, I've got no items left, but he's got more now, so I could buy all 9 of his potions, go buy his 2 speed potions, and then now I've got 9 and 2, and he's got nothing left. So your guys' task for now, for the next video, if you want to do it before I get there, is to clean up this, so essentially hide all this stuff on the right while there's no item selected, and to make it so that whenever we click confirm and do some actual item changing, you update this UI accordingly, right? That's the goal. So I hope you guys do that. If you don't, then obviously I'll cover that in the next video when I also fix the other edge cases and do the refactoring. But that's it now. We have a successful vendor system. So I hope you guys obviously like this mini part of the series where we did the vendor stuff. If you guys have any other requests for the system, then feel free to leave those below. But next, we're probably going to move on to either doing a quest system or, doing some melee combat or just doing something next, right? I don't actually have it planned yet. I'm going away for the next week, and when I get back, I'll then decide what to do next. But yeah, I hope you guys are really enjoying the series. I know quite a lot of you are, so feel free to leave more video ideas. Help me out on social media, all the stuff's down below, blah, blah, blah. Thanks, guys, for watching. See you. Peace.